Hello, everybody. It is the DNA show. It is Friday, which means it is your movie review just for you from your two favorite content creators, Dennis and Andy. Last night, we went and saw the highly anticipated, really pushed back, I believe, 2 years from its original date, Kraven the Hunter, starring some Aaron Taylor Johnson. No, is that right?
Yes, it is. Andy, you got it.
Well, once you see him as Quicksilver and Kick Ass first, and then Quicksilver, and now
And
this,
Fall Guy.
and yeah, he was in
He had
Fall
such good
Guy,
ones.
uh, and in all those roles, he was fantastic. And then in this one, it was either the editing or something else, but it really did feel like he phoned it in. Um, anyhow, Kraven the Hunter. For those that don't know, Dennis, what is Kraven the Hunter about?
Wow. Craven, was a Spider-Man foe from the comics.
Yep.
But Craven's complex relationship with his ruthless father, Nikolai Kravinoff, starts him down a path of vengeance with a brutal consequence motivating him to become not only the greatest hunter in the world, but also one of the most feared.
Oh, alrighty then. You saw a lot in the trailer. The thing they really hid the most, I'd say, in the trailer is the rhino. We'll get to that. So yeah, so Craven, they released the first 8 minutes online, which I don't really consider a good sign because that's really like saying, yeah, it's 8 minutes, which is still a small percentage of the movie, but check it out, guys, come see it. I will go out on a limb and tell me if you feel this way. I don't think that prison scene from those first 8 minutes, I don't think that was intended to be the beginning of the movie.
No, I would agree. Now, I did not watch anything online. I stayed away from everything. I like going into things surprise. I will tell you, it does open with the current day, and he's in the prison, and apparently those were the 8 minutes that were online. And I was like, wow, this is kind of good. I don't mind this. I'm like, could we get a
Right?
movie from Sony? I got it kind of excited there. And then as soon as those 8 minutes are done, it cuts back and you start getting into the origin 16 years earlier. And that's when the movie instantly went off the rails. And I mean, by going off the rails, I don't mean they did stupid stuff, which they did. I'm just saying it was boring. You had to, it was like going through this jungle. Instead of a big machete to cut your way, I've got this little butter knife that I'm trying to walk through the jungle with. Oh my God, I was bored. I mean, I was so bored. I sighed how many times? I actually looked like if I had a watch on, I would be looking at my watch. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I had great expectations after those 8 minutes, and yeah, it wow. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think I I wasn't as bored during the flashback stuff as you were with his origin, but I do think they could have trimmed the fat on it some because I get it. They want to show the relationship between the brothers because Craven has a brother in this movie. Yes, I'm a Marvel Comics fan. Yes, I know who Craven is. Do I know everything about him? No, I couldn't even tell you honestly, and maybe Dennis, you know this, if they stuck to his origin like it is from the
No,
comics. Oh, they didn't? Oh, okay.
no. Basically, they changed it where how Peter Parker got bit by the radioactive spider. Well, this was a drop of now infused mystical, the blood mixing with this potion thing
Right.
that was given to him
Okay.
by Calypso. And I literally was sitting there and I had Andy to my left and then 3 or 4 guys right to the right of me. And I really wanted to start singing Braveheart, um, the old cartoon, uh, you know, Eyes of the Hawk, Ears of the Wolf.
Oh, yeah. Because that's what they did. But now let me say this from a guy who doesn't know Craven's origin, because I think the only Craven stuff I've read is the Hunter thing from Spider-Man that Mike Zeck did way back in the day. And that's probably the bulk of Kraven stuff I've read, unless he was in an issue here or there. So, not knowing what his actual comic book origin is, which I'm going to look up later for myself, I didn't mind the origin. And like I was saying, back to the scene, you were really bored. The flashback, it could have been trimmed, but like I said, you needed to see the relationship between the brothers. You need to see the relationship between the dad. They, how I called it. This is 16 years earlier. There's this one dude on this safari that wants to get in business with Kraven's dad, played by Russell Crowe, and he's got longer hair. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, they either de-aged or did makeup. And then once I saw him in present day, I'm like, that was makeup. I leaned over, I go, I bet I said, I think that's the dude that becomes the Rhino.
And I snickered because it was. I mean, I was like, yes.
I mean, they foreshadow, like every movie is going to do some type of foreshadowing, but the good movies do it really subtle. So when the foreshadowing happens later in the movie, you'll go, oh yeah, this movie just was like you remember I think it was Airplane, the comedy, the chick on the plane that's freaking out and the guys just line up and slap her in the face.
Yeah, and then Barbara Billingsley does too, which is the Beaver's mom.
That's how all the foreshadowing in this movie was done. They just slapped you in the face and it was like, this is happening later. This will come back later. This will come back later. I mean, I think a 2-year-old could see the foreshadowing. So they get done with the flashback stuff. And, basically you saw in the trailer, Kraven gets attacked by this big lion. It's basically the white whale of Moby Dick that Russell Crowe's going after, and the lion, I will tell you this. The lion, yes, it was CG'd. That I thought it was awesome because it was a jacked out, this lion hits the gym, boss level lion. And I was like, okay, that's pretty badass looking, So he, Kraven gets mauled as a kid, left for dead. Calypso, this chick they're introducing that is visiting her grandmother or some shit, or lives there, a few scenes earlier, is playing with tarot cards from her grandmother. And then her grandmother is like, out of everybody in my family, basically, because, families like this, they're huge. Out of everybody in my family, I'm giving you this one little vial of potion and you'll know when to use it. And it can basically heal anything. So coincidentally, she's on safari with her parents. And you never really find out why. And they're in a Jeep and they stop and they're not hunters. They're visual safarists or whatever, like to look at the animals, and they're looking, and then they turn around and the kid's not in the back of the Jeep. And they're like, Calypso. And why'd she leave the Jeep? I don't know. Do you? I didn't hear anything.
No, there was absolutely no reason. She was just gone and just happened to be walking through the Serengeti, we'll call it, and just happens to be right there where the lion happens to drop Sergei's body and then looks at her. And I'm like, wow, these are two really small coincidences to happen in order to make this plot work. Oh my God, it made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's all comes down to the talent of the writing. We've all seen movies with these odd coincidences. But if they're done well, you don't think to yourself, that's an odd coincidence. This movie, every time you thought, you're like, okay. So, yes, we're not even doing a separate spoiler section. We're just talking about stuff because I highly doubt lots of people are going to go see this. Another thing, now we're just going, in my mind, we're just going to jump around with stuff. So he gets these powers, and like when the lion blood dripped into him, and then, she gives him the healing stuff. It was because of, like you said, both of those, he gets the powers. But as soon as the lion blood dripped into him, my first thought was, and he gets bitten by a radioactive lion.
Right. That is exactly what ran through my mind. And I you heard me snicker, and then I went, oh, I was just like, Oh my God, I just can't believe it. You
And
know, and then
then
it's all about the vial. And then, the
it's,
funny thing is, even later, it comes into play later in the movie because she's walking around with another pouch, which the vial was in, but he still has the original one. And she had given him one of the tarot cards. And this is the other thing, Kraven is the greatest hunter. In the comic books, Kraven got tired of hunting the biggest lions and animals, so he needed to hunt the thing that was the most hard to hunt, Spider-Man.
right.
Spider-Man was to be the trophy, in this. So I'm gonna hunt Spider-Man, and in this, they completely turned him into the sympathetic anti-hero once again. I'm gonna go after poachers, and it
Well, and
everything
then
that makes
so
Craven such a great villain, they
well.
completely removed. They neutered him in this. And
Oh, I was going to say that.
if we go
So
back to the Penguin show, which Andy and I haven't talked about, but they introduced the Penguin, and then they turn around and did an origin story with him in a show. And he is the villain that we all want. They didn't change him, but they kind of made a bit of a sympathy. So you see his life growing up and what he went through. And it was a phenomenal actual show, more of a mobster show than anything, but it was great. They once again just neutered Craven and everything around it. Were there a few good fight scenes? Yep, some of the scenes were kind of enjoyable, but
yeah, I thought
by
I
and
mean, I thought
large, this whole thing
I,
was ugh.
I thought the action scenes were good, but the last scene I'm going to bring up is he's in London, wherever, at his dad's place. His dad, he recovers. They take him back home. He's there with his brother, and that's when he starts realizing, like, whoa, he just feels different. Whatever he realizes. Or oh no, that's it. He doesn't realize he has the powers yet. He's sneaking out to leave because he just can't take it. His dad's a dick. He can't take it, so he's going to leave. So for some reason, instead of just walking out of this huge mansion, it's huge. It's not like a small tiny house
Oh yeah.
where if I go out the front door, they're going to hear me. He goes out the window ledge, and it's high up, 3 stories, whatever. And the ledge cracks, and he falls. And instead of falling to the ground and going thump, he, like a cat, he flips around and lands on all fours. And I lean over to Dennis and I go, it's the reverse Peter Parker, because Peter Parker, the car was coming and he jumps onto a wall out of the way. And that's
Yeah.
when he's like, what?
Yep.
So then they did a whole power montage, whatever. The other thing, and this is a spoiler, are we going to mention his brother and what happens with his brother or no?
Nah. No.
Okay, we won't. So we'll leave that. He has a brother. There's a tie into the Marvel universe with his brother. We'll leave it at that. I can tell you, and Dennis, I know I'm right on this. In the comics, that is not the relationship between these two people.
Yeah.
Right. So they're
Yeah.
trying to build to the Sinister Six. There is no after credit. There is no mid credit. I even told Dennis once again, the movie ends, fades to black, and then it was a kind of long fade. And I'm like, oh, the credits going to start. And then it comes to 1 year later. And I think everything after the fade to black, the 1 year later stuff, I think that was the after credit. And they were like, you know what? Let's not do this. People might not stay anyhow.
Yeah.
There, this is like Green Lantern. There's not a sequel in the works. No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I will say this. We mentioned this. You asked. So the one thing I looked up beforehand, because you were like, why'd this take so long to come out? And I was like, well, there were some reshoots. It wasn't just reshoots. That entire Rhino part at the end, the big fight scene, that was what they completely added. That whole part was added to the movie.
Wait a second. So the Rhino, though, from the original trailer was always in it. So there was
He
never a
was.
fight.
He was. No, there was no big fight at the end, and they had to do it. And I'm going to be honest, I can tell they rushed through it because the CG on the Rhino, this is what this film reminded me of.
I think
The
it was hit or
movies-
miss. I'm going to say I think the Rhino CG wasn't out of 0 to 10, out of 0 to 10, we'll rate the Rhino CG because I'm curious. It was not a 10, like say the
Oh, no.
Hulk stuff in the movies and whatnot. I'd say it was a strong 6.5 to 7.
Oh, I'm going with a 3.5 to 4.
No, I don't think it was
Oh,
that
yeah,
bad.
it was horrible,
I
dude.
just
This
think I
was
think
this was late 90s.
my
This reminded
no,
me of
I don't
Catwoman,
know.
Elektra.
My
Yeah,
first thought with the Rhino CG out of anything were his proportions, and I'm like, whoa, Rhino skip leg day. Because
yeah, no,
basically, the dude, we won't even get into why the dude turns into the Rhino or how, but when he changes, I mean, his upper body really blasts out, but his jeans don't rip, his pants don't rip or anything. I mean, his shirt has to because he's huge. And, if they could have tightened up the Rhino effects to make him look as good as the Hulk does most of the time, the design for the Rhino was right out of the comics. He was fucking great.
I
But
mean, the design was, but the execution, the CG was horrific on that thing. Look at his eyes. Look at the texture that they've got
all right.
going on him. I'm like, dude, this is 90s. Bring me back Nick Cage from Ghost Rider. That was better.
Okay. So are we at the review part now?
Yeah.
Okay. CGC review. I know it's my turn. Um Man, I hate dissing Marvel stuff. But I'm just want to go a flat out. I'm gonna go right in the middle and give it a 5. It's a superhero movie. I was entertained, but Russell Crowe did a good acting job. Nothing phenomenal. He basically threw an accent on. Like I said, Aaron Taylor Johnson, seeing the catalog of movies he's done, this was not one of his best. And yeah, I give it a 5. I mean, just wait till it comes out on TV or something if you want to see it. It'll be soon.
Yeah. Um, I thought the dialogue was not good at all through this. I thought the
Oh no, the
story
dialogue
was
was
terrible,
yeah.
and the actors did the best with what they could. But I think I love Russell Crowe. I mean, when you look at the people that are in it, I love them all as actors. But I think they read through this script and went, "Oh, you know what? I'm getting a paycheck. We're good." There was so little. I said the first 8 minutes were the best part of the entire movie, and yeah, that's just like an extended version of the trailer. Yeah, I was bored through it. I is this as bad as Madam Web? The answer is not quite. I still think Madam Web was worse, but not by an awful lot. At least Madam Web had Sydney Sweeney to look at, even though she wasn't dressed down very well. This one, I don't know. There, even Calypso's
So
acting.
wait, what did you give it?
I literally laughed at some. I am giving this one a 3.5.
Wow. All right. What about IMDb and stuff?
IMDb is giving it a 5.5. Rotten Tomatoes, we have scores. The critics are giving it a 14, and the audience is giving it a 68. So the
Wow.
audience and critics do not agree on this.
Well, the Kraven the Hunter that everybody wants to see and the team up everybody wants to see with Kraven. This. That's what they wanted to see.
Yeah, the all they really need to do. Here's the problem with all of these Sonyverse, Avir Rod and stuff. I think you there's a reason why they're stopping, because Kraven would have been fantastic if it would have been based around Spider-Man and they just did the hunt. But you got to have Spider-Man in there. You got to quit turning all the really good villains into sympathetic anti-heroes. They
Right.
are not.
And
They are
Kraven's a villain. He shouldn't be fighting another villain.
yeah.
So yeah, this is the Kraven team up everybody wanted to see, but they didn't. But the big thing that people really want is, of course, Kor-Drath the Awakening, Volume 2. I have 1 page left to draw, and we're at 780 backers, 20 backers away from 800. Be one of the 20 to get this exciting 64-page graphic novel featuring Kor-Drath and Adriana furthering their quest for these rare artifacts to take down the evil Vordoom the Undying, Necronite, and Lilneth from trying to overtake the Shattered Reach. This volume focuses on the Black Eagles tribe and their battle against the villainous evils in the book. Lots of covers to choose from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different covers specifically. We added more preview pages. Oh, a young Kor-Drath and Adriana there. So, guys, go check out this campaign. There's a new game module Dennis wrote. Very proud of this campaign and looking to get it to you guys in first quarter of next year as promised. Link in the description below. Please go check it out. Get yourself a beanie. We put those back up. It is wintertime. And there you go, guys. Thank you for joining us on this exciting movie review. We will be back next Wednesday, 3 p.m. with Belmont Press. Pencils Down is his campaign, and we're going to talk to him and have another guest as well on the show. So until then, have a great weekend. Be safe, be happy, be Star Trek, I guess.
Live long and prosper, as always.
As always, bye-bye, everybody.